I want to drop a little bit of a black pill on this video in regards to what the future purchasing power of Bitcoin might be. There seems to be this ubiquitous vision of a Bitcoin future in which it's Star Trek. Uh, Bitcoin has unleashed the full potential of humanity and civilization. Productivity goes into infinity. Standard of living just explodes exponentially because all of the friction caused by the fiat system, the fiat paradigm, is eliminated. And to the degree that productivity and wealth increases in this vision of the future is the degree to which Bitcoin, if it is the unit of account, if it is the measure of value in this future system, well, the value of Bitcoin increases proportional to that. But what if the future is not one of expansion and growth and productivity? What if the future, even just in the next couple decades or just for a generation, what if the future is actually characterized by the greatest economic collapse in human history? Because when you have the entire world addicted to this fiat system, when you have the entire world tethered to a monetary system that is based on printing money from nothing, from debt-based fiat currency, when you have an entire world run by central banks and fractional reserve banking, there's no region of the world that is not touched by this system. What happens if and when that system fails? You have a situation in which there could be catastrophic breakdowns. We saw after the fall of the Soviet Union that there was about a decade of just really awful conditions, economically and socially as well. The standards of living in Russia following the collapse of the Soviet Union were abysmal. It was like there was this period, a hangover period that was required. You know, you don't go through 70 years of communism without having. You need essentially to have a collapse after something like that, because you need for all the bad investments, all the bureaucracies and all that, all of these antiquated and obsolete institutions, they all need to be allowed to collapse, and that process is very painful. Now, in the case of the Soviet Union collapsing, it was a peaceful collapse overall. In terms of measuring it by metrics that indicate standard of living, it was not a great period. It was a very dark period, but it was required for recovery from 70 years of communism. Now, in the case of the entire world collapsing, the system, the financial system that the entire world runs on, if it ever blue screens, glitches, and fails, and a reboot is required, that is similarly going to be a very painful process. Possibly a very there could be wars, there could be violence, civil unrest. there could be, and I'm not talking about a few months of this before everything wraps up. You could have, we could be entering a period of decades, a generation long economic depression. This, I see this as a real possibility. I do not see Star Trek future as inevitable by any means. And to the degree that the future is characterized by a general decline in GDP worldwide, is a future in which the real purchasing power of any money, it ultimately declines, because any money is simply a claim upon the wealth, the net wealth, a percentage claim of the net wealth of society. And if the net wealth of society or civilization or any political jurisdiction is in decline, well, the essentially that's deflation. The purchasing power of the money also declines. If the size of the pie shrinks, your slice of it does as well. Money is not the real wealth. It is a claim upon the real wealth. The real wealth is the productive capacity of an economy, of a civilization. You can't do anything with money. You can't eat money. You can't build things with money. You can't. Money has no utility other than being a store of value and a medium of exchange and a universally saleable good. Money is the lubrication of an economy. It is the oil that keeps everything running smoothly. Money is the ability to store productive capacity for future use, ideally for as long as possible. Ideally, you want to be able to store productive capacity for decades if you wish, and then deploy it somewhere decades, perhaps even a century down the line. That's ideally what money is. But to the degree that the standard of living, to the degree that the infrastructure of the underlying economy is in decline, money is not resistant to that. You have to have the strong economy upon which money is a claim to a portion of that productivity. If you don't have that, your money is also going to decline in purchasing power. And that's the truth about Bitcoin, is that it might not be the case that with Bitcoin you are looking at a situation where you held on to your Bitcoin for 20 years and now you're driving to work in a SpaceX rocket. You know what I mean? There seems to be this assumption by a lot of people in the Bitcoin community that the future is going to be one in which GDP and productivity and the world economy continue to grow exponentially. I don't know. Maybe it is the case that if and when the fiat legacy financial system just breaks down and stops working, maybe it is the case that having Bitcoin standing by, ready for the transition, makes that transition significantly smoother, with less friction, with less violence, because there's less downtime for the economy, for civilization. There's less because there is this this hard money just waiting in the rafters to be adopted. There could be some upside there. There could be a bright side, but I wouldn't assume that to be the case. It could be a period that is very difficult. It could be on the level of the Great Depression. You know, people who survived or lived through the Great Depression, who are still alive today, you know, they were kids during the Great Depression. You know, I know for a fact that many of these people who are now elderly to this day do not trust banks and stash significant amounts of cash in their homes. And I'm not talking about, oh, I know one person, I know, you know, anecdotally, there was a scar, a psychological scar that was left on an entire generation. You don't forget that kind of thing. When your financial system fails, you don't forget it. It leaves a scar that lasts a generation. And that's the kind of difficult period that could be coming. The collapse of the fiat, the legacy fiat financial system, there's no way that it is not a period marked by turmoil and difficulty and a general decline in living standards, a collapse in worldwide GDP, and this thing could last a long time. Where it could last a decade, and who knows what other events in the world, catastrophes or wars, or whatever could be triggered by it. If we enter a period of years, decades, even a generation of great difficulty and hard times, then the value of your Bitcoin is going to be the degree to which it provides a buffer against these difficult conditions. You see, I am not in this video trying to discourage you from buying Bitcoin at all. Quite the opposite, actually. Because in the event that the fiat financial system suffers some critical failure, or it just continues to crumble until finally it collapses, and that system just cannot continue to operate, it ceases to work. Again, very much like we saw with the Soviet Union, it all stopped working at one point. The whole system just stopped working. It collapsed. And in the event of a collapse of the fiat system, you are going to need an asset that is outside of that system. So recognize that I am not trying to FUD Bitcoin here by adjusting expectations. If anything, I am saying Bitcoin is critical to own. Not because it's going to earn you lambos, but because it is going to provide you a critical security buffer, an ability to maintain your purchasing power, even in an environment in which the general economy is in decline or even collapse. You are going to need money and assets that are outside of that system, and I think Bitcoin absolutely fits the bill in that regard. What I am attempting to adjust expectations for is this idea that the general reign of prosperity is just going to continue ever on into the future. It is just a rainbow road of ever increasing productivity and wealth forever. Well, that's not how history goes, folks. That's not. History has never worked that way. There is ebb and flow. There is good times and hard times. So, in the event that hard times are to come, Bitcoin is not going to be about lambos. It's not going to be about yachts. It's not going to be about. There's not going to be this mentality of being rich and this fantasy of the lifestyle that goes with that. That is, well, it's going to prove to be a fantasy. What is going to actually matter is that your wealth, your life savings, is not eviscerated, first of all. You need to protect your capital from the threat of total obliteration. If everything that you own is tied up in the fiat system, you risk losing everything. In this potential future, it is survival of capital that matters. It is not compound growth of your net worth. It is not prosperity is not in the cards. It is hard times for everyone. But what matters is that you are able to preserve your wealth so that it survives the transition to the next system, to the next paradigm. That critical transition period, which can be a long time. It may be longer than months. It may be measured in years, even a decade, 2 decades. Who knows? There's living historical memory of this kind of period of great difficulty. Not just economically, but politically, socially. There is living memory of this kind of transition period. And the key when entering hard times like this is survival of capital. Transitioning your wealth from one system to the other without it being wiped out. That is where Bitcoin comes in. Bitcoin is perfectly positioned because it is basically not just money, it is a parallel financial system. And in that sense, those who stake their claim of ownership of that system now before it needs to be adopted on a mass scale, on the scale of international scope, before humanity needs to adopt it. Not chooses, but needs to adopt it. If you stake your claim to that network now before that happens, then you are in a very good position to transition your wealth into the next system for it to not only survive that transition, but on the other side of it, you will be able to take advantage of opportunity, because in every crisis there is the seeds of opportunity. There will be, on the other side of the collapse of the fiat financial system, there will be opportunity. And those who have capital that survived the crisis will be the ones who are able to take advantage of those opportunities. So, in conclusion, the purpose of this video is not really to black pill you, okay? It's not to turn you off Bitcoin at all. Quite the opposite, actually. The purpose of this video is to adjust your expectations, because I see this mentality within the Bitcoin community in which it is just assumed that prosperity into forever into the future is just an assumption. I think the possibility of hard times needs to be accounted for, and in such an environment, with the decline in general living standard, with a socio political and economic chaos or disorder or turmoil, the value of Bitcoin is going to be measured in its stability, in its ability to insulate you from that chaos, from its zero counterparty risk, from its protection against confiscation. These are the ways in which the value of Bitcoin is going to be measured and valued on an intrinsic level. People are going to value Bitcoin for these metrics, not for number go up, not for its ability to increase your fiat purchasing power in order to buy more lambos. To the moon, and we're all going to make it, and all these this mentality of getting rich, that will all be forgotten, and all that people will care about is, how do I shelter my wealth from this chaos, and even, how do I ensure that I can continue putting food on the table and fuel in my vehicle and keeping my house warm. And those who are able to survive those hard times, and those who are able to preserve their capital through it, those are the ones that will get through this period of turmoil and who will thrive on the other side of it. And I think Bitcoin is the answer to that black pill. It is the hope on the other side of that black pill.